See, the problem is that Matthew starts talking before we record. He gets all the questions out, and then.
But have we started recording?
He's such a buzzard. We are now recording.
Oh, we're recording. Well, let's introduce this lovely young lady here. Her name is Simone.
Matthew, you've done all the research on this episode, so why don't you...
I've got no idea. All I know is we have Simone sitting in front of us, and we've had some really good banter to start the show, right? Which has been awesome. So, Simone, welcome on our show.
Full name, Holtznagel. Simone Holtznagel, coming all the way from
Holtznagel.
Sydney. You're in Sydney at the moment.
Sydney, Australia.
I'm sure lots of people listening, but definitely watching, will recognise Simone, because Simone is, well, I think so, especially our younger audience, because, you know, we touch all demographics.
Ooh. David.
But Simone has been a model, influencer, TV personality. Well, influencer, you're influencing. Yeah. You've influenced me a lot.
But I like to preface this by saying I started modeling before Instagram was even invented. So
we want to talk about that, but that kind of ages you. So that's not so good.
I mean, that's fine. I did a body scan today. My bio age is 28. So
how old are you though, Simone?
31.
Oh, that's not bad. That's not bad.
Yeah, it's not bad.
You've given it a fair nudge over the years too, so you're doing...
I've lived multiple lives.
We all have.
And I do believe you've got an 8-month-old baby girl.
I do. My baby Gia, she's the best ever. Very lucky.
What's her name, sorry?
Just Gia.
Gia?
Like, as in Gia, as in supermodel Gia Cargini. First American.
Yeah,
supermodel.
Supermodel.
Gia Cargini.
Yeah, you remember her?
I never know if I'm saying her last name correctly, but that's who, you know, like the supermodel Gia, who was like...
Yeah, Angelina Jolie played her in a movie, right?
Yeah.
It's good to see you, Simi.
It's so nice to see you.
So Simone and I go a long way back, which is how we've managed to get somebody of this caliber on our...
I actually don't know anything about Simone. Okay, so yeah. No offense, Simone. Okay, I didn't know you're super famous.
I'm not.
Exactly.
I'm not.
She's going to be the surprise gift that keeps on giving. We're going to have to watch, guys. I'm feeling the energy already that we don't talk over each other.
Okay. Yeah.
Matthew can be a bulldozer, and
no, I do it too.
You're a she bulldozer.
Okay.
And I don't know what I am. But anyway, so Simone, we met a long time ago when you had just signed up or gone on to Top Model Australia, the TV show.
I had just finished the show and I just moved to Sydney, and our very dear friend...
15 years ago, right? No, longer?
I mean, I'm not good at math, but
You were 16?
No, I turned 18 in the show, and I'm 31 now.
Okay.
So it's
13 years ago. 13.
Okay, 13 years. So I just turned 18. I just finished Top Model, and our dear friend, the late, great Charlotte Dawson, introduced us. She wasn't even actually there, but she was always talking about, she was like, my friend Ringo, you've got to meet Ringo. He's the best. And then you and I organized to go, we went to Max Brenner.
No, you came to the beach. You came to the beach first.
Really? Did I?
At Whale Beach.
Head, we went to Max Brenner first, but I remember going to Whale Beach, but that was beautiful. I loved that weekend. It's like one of my favorite Charlotte memories.
Yeah, speaking of Charlotte, you know, she's probably what you'd call one of your bigger influences in your life, right? That's fair to say.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I think about, like, Top Model and meeting Charlotte and just, like, the whole, I don't want to say pivot, because I always wanted to do modeling and be a model. But I just think, like, doing that show and meeting Charlotte and all of the people that she, like, introduced me to have, like, changed my life. And like you're one of my closest friends now. And like we met because of me doing that show and meeting Charlotte. Why are you laughing?
Thank you. We haven't even met, but it's so nice.
He'll influence you, but in all the wrong ways.
Hey, no, look, I think we need to expand a little bit. So we're talking about Charlotte Dawson, who was like New Zealand's, you know, I guess she was one of New Zealand's more famous models.
Yeah,
she's up there with Rachel Hunter and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
She didn't go internet. Did she go internet?
Yes, she did.
Did she?
Yeah, she modelled in New York.
Yeah, she was in New York. She lived with Eileen Ford for a little bit. She did all stuff in Europe, like all like, back like 90s model catalogy stuff. And then then obviously she came back to Australia and had an unfortunate husband and
She was married to that
we
the
don't
swimmer
name
guy.
him.
Yeah.
We don't
What was
name him.
Voldemort?
What?
Yeah, we don't
Yeah.
talk about him.
But I remember him.
Yeah.
He was a good swimmer in the day.
Yeah, but it wasn't really good much else.
But that was in the 90s.
Yeah, I was about to say that's the only thing he was good at.
So that was in the 90s. Jeez, it's a
And
long
so
time.
Charlotte, for those who don't know, it had pivoted to a massive career in TV for a number of years in Australia, and one of her bigger shows, I think, would be fair to say, was Australia's Next Top Model, which is where you met her. And so, how did that go from you being a contestant on that show, which is interesting in itself, to like you become, I don't know, soulmate, so to speak, with the host,
So
one of the hosts.
It was just funny, like as soon as we met, and she always used to say, like, I think she kind of saw a lot of herself in me. And while I was filming that show, because I got to the very end, so I took 3 months off year 12, filmed the show, had to go back to school for a few weeks. Then, like, I was back at school for 2 weeks, the show started airing. And I wasn't allowed to talk about how far I got in the show or whatever. And then because I was in year 12, the week of the finale coincided with the HSE. So I was sitting my final exams for year 12, and before this, I think I might have gone and stayed with Charlotte once, but we just had this like instant kind of bond, and she just really took me under her wing. So I went and stayed with her for a weekend, and then I think like the producers and the execs of the show were like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Like, you're still like, the show's still airing. People don't know, the placement of Simone, like didn't know that it got to the final. And they're like, it's weird that she's going and sleeping over at your house. So we got a little bit in trouble for that. And then like we had lots of commitments and stuff to do, with press and wrapping up the show. And it was hectic. And she kind of really went into bat for me because I was traveling back and forth from Wollongong at this point. And, so I would just stay at her house. Because she was like, well, you got to stay in Sydney, and I didn't know anyone else.
Everyone did that. Because she's one of the people who got me to Sydney, and I used her apartment too for a while. She was sort of like my go-to.
Yeah, she was like, just come stay with me. It's totally fine, and you'll figure it out. So what happened? Then so Top Model wraps up, right? I finish the HSC and I start working as a model full-time straight away. I just finished school and I came to Sydney, and anytime I had a job and I had a bunch of castings, I'd go and stay with Charlotte. And she was like, you need your own place. You need to be put in a model apartment. So she rang our agency. We were with the same agency at the time. And they got me put into a model apartment like 2 days later. And so I moved to Sydney. I was living in Bondi, and then again, I didn't really know anyone. So I was spending like all my weekends with Charlotte, like would have sleepovers all the time. And like I'd go to all the events and stuff with her. So she introduced me to like a lot of people who'd been in the industry for like a really long time and like really well respected. So I'm kind of like, it's very sweet the way that I've been treated within, media and like, I would say like media, fashion industry, of all of Charlotte's old friends who always kind of have my back.
Yeah,
so that's really sweet.
Because for those who don't know Charlotte, I didn't even know what the terminology you're allowed to use these days is, because you like.
Do you want me to just come out and say it?
Well, I don't think you can use the S word, can you?
She committed suicide.
You can say that.
Of course, you can say that. Like she committed suicide.
She did for for whatever reason. We don't even need to go into that because it's tragic in itself, and there's so many people who deal with that. But you're
still dealing with that, eh? Because what
I think I don't think it ever leaves you, right? And that journey you go on when you're close to it, as we were, And,
Yeah.
because it's not something, I don't know, but in this situation, it wasn't something that was out of the blue. So it was
Yeah.
precipitated
We weren't
by.
shocked.
We were not shocked, and the shocking thing was
That you weren't shocked.
that was shocking, but in itself, but it's just like still how much it was devastating.
It was still like when it happened, like, because we used to talk about it all the time because we'd, had a few failed interventions up our sleeve. And,
Who you guys used to talk about it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, well, we like, well, you can choose to leave this in or not. I don't.
We'll probably leave it in because editing's work.
I'll never forget our failed intervention, and we were like, Ringo, like, this is what we're going to do. You need to show up. And Ringo walked through the balcony doors from the wharf, and she was like, what is this, a fucking intervention? And you were like, yeah. And then she was just like, it was like middle of the day, and she was like, I'm going to bed, and then like stormed off, and there was just like me and Ringo and now 2 other friends just standing in the living room, and we were all just kind of like, and I remember we went and we left and went and sat at a restaurant on the wharf, and we all kind of had a very frank conversation. We actually, as her friends, kind of not knowing what to do, we rang a few helplines and all spoke to someone and said, look, our friend's in this position. We're unequipped to deal with this. Like, I was 20.
Yeah.
Anyways, so we just I remember that day, and we kind of just all sat there and we were like, listen, this is going to happen at some point. We just all need to be ready for it, and there's nothing we can do. And
doesn't that blow your mind? Like, if I think about it now, and I'm like, I can't believe those were the conversations we were having.
I know, and it might sound like really, like, to somebody else listening, being like, well, there's stuff you could have done, but I do genuinely think, like, you can try as much as you want. Like, if someone makes their mind up about something at the end of the day, like someone who's especially strong-willed, they're probably going to do it.
Yeah.
So,
but that grief has been so, for me personally, has been so defining. Like, I don't know how you heal and you move on and stuff like that. Like, any death is sad, but that sort of death where you feel not complicit, but you feel an element of failure or guilt or
totally.
Or having let somebody down, because my last interaction with her involved like a tough love approach, which isn't my go-to, as Matthew probably knows. And it was like, I'm going to try a tough love approach. And then that was the last time I saw her, and she killed herself a few days after. I'm not saying it was my fault, but that was my particular thing that, like, is still to this day, I'm like,
yeah, you blew it. Because it's not you. It wasn't you to give the tough love.
No.
So you would have. I know you, mate. So you would have just been destroyed.
Oh yeah, I've relived that interaction a million times in my head.
Oh mate, that's horrendous.
Yeah. And I know I just said, like, because we did have that frank conversation, being like, this is going to happen one day, and we had tried everything, but it didn't mean that we gave up. We still kept trying. And, like, we were always there for her. So when it did finally happen, like, obviously we were, speaking for myself, like, devastated. But I remember talking to my parents after it, like, a day later or something. And I was like, you know what? As much as I wish this never happened, and I wish she was still here, like, she talked about it for so long. She's finally, like, where she wants to be. So it's such a weird thought to have about suicide.
I get you. I know exactly what you're saying.
It was like a relief too, right?
Because it's like, she's finally, like, done exactly what she's wanted to do, and she's happy. Do we wish she was still here? Fucking yeah. But, like,
yeah, and there's anger as well. Yeah. Like, anger was really overwhelming. I was kind of pissy for a long time.
Yeah, I feel like I was angry because I was just like, what the fuck? Like, yeah, I was so young, and we were all angry because it was like you had all of these people ready to jump in and, like, help you and do whatever it was that we could do, and
Simone keeps having Charlotte return and sit on her bed as a ghost.
Oh my
What?
God, I do. Charlotte's just my fucking
She's
dad.
literally haunting Simone.
She
Wow.
does. It's happened to me a few times, and a very good friend of mine who's a medium, and just all these like things that happen, and he's like, I did his podcast, and he did kind of like a little mini reading, and Charlotte said some things which it was just like, okay, like, and I said to him, I was like, I keep waking up at this time and I keep feeling like something run its hand, like while I'm asleep, like down my shoulders. And I like wake up like full chills. I think it's her. It literally could be anybody, but I like to think it's her. And I'm told
Well,
it is her, so that's nice.
That's nice.
It's funny, you can find like solace in all sorts of different things, and humor is one of them too. So when a while after Charlotte died, I was living in LA, Jimmy and I had moved up there. You were up there independently, so we'd kind of like transported a part of the group up to Los Angeles, and we managed to get some of her ashes in our possession.
This day. Okay.
You can work. You can feed out the information you want to feed out.
Okay. I the picture. It was like 20.
Did you exhume the body?
No, they were her ashes.
Oh.
It was like 2016. Me and Ringo in Los Angeles. My mum was there, and one of my very dear friends, Pat.
Is that Pat Rafter?
Yeah, Pat Rafter. Hold
Don't
on,
worry, Simone.
I'm wearing. It's getting dark in here. Hold on.
It's not Pat Rafter.
No, it's not Pat Rafter.
Do you know who Pat Rafter
The
is?
tennis player.
Yeah.
I'm not a retard.
Oh, fuck. I didn't say you were ass bread.
Hold on. I'm just trying to put a light on.
Turn the light down yourself a little bit, darling, okay? Because you're making us look a bit dim, all right?
Is this too? Wait.
That's good.
No.
Should we start from the top?
I can actually see. I can totally see why you like this bitch. She's a
Oh, thank you. Finally, you haven't taken my word for it.
Oh,
How long have I
shit.
been saying?
Pat and I had been to an Oscar party the night before at Chateau, and I was feeling like very worse for wear the next day, and it was an emotional time because it was her anniversary, like whatever year anniversary. And so I had this vial that one of Charlotte's sisters had graciously given me in like a pill bottle. I had Charlotte's ashes, and we went to the Ivy on Robertson Boulevard in Beverly Hills. We had lunch, and the Chanel store was just down the road, and we were like, "Come on, let's go and put her ashes in this Chanel store." And so we have this video of me and Ringo like walking along, and I'm like
Trying to dodge security.
the security guard's standing there, and I'm like salt baying the ashes along the fucking door of Chanel.
You bad, man. Yeah.
But
like, hey.
she would have approved. Matthew knew Charlotte.
Yeah, I knew her well.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I knew her well, yeah.
Do you have any good funny moments?
Oh. No, at first we didn't get on, Charlotte and I.
Yeah, she had good intuition.
Yeah, we clashed pretty hard, and then we became quite tight. But yeah, she always seemed like a troubled soul.
Lots of people say that.
She always seemed like a troubled soul. She seemed like larger than life, but also like that there was just this angst in her.
She just burnt real bright.
Yeah.
Real quick.
How old was she when she died? 39?
46.
Was she that old?
47, 46.
Oh, she had a good run.
Remember we celebrated her 50th on the wrong year?
We were like, Charlotte's 50th, we have to do something, and then we're like, yeah, so that was last year. We blamed that on COVID though.
We planned a whole party. Remember? Yeah. Anyway, moving on.
My God.
Hey, Simone. So what I'd like to know is, because I like you don't know a thing about me, and I don't know a thing about you, other than you're obviously a strikingly beautiful woman. But can you tell me a little bit about your career?
Okay, so obviously I started modeling when I was like 16. I was still at school. I'd do like random jobs like on Thursdays and Fridays afternoon. Like I'd take half the day off school and I'd go to work. And then entered Top Model, got to the final, came third. moved to Sydney as an 18-year-old, started working here. And then when I was 20, I went to LA for 3 months and then decided I wanted to move there. So the day my visa was approved, my agency there booked me a one-way ticket, and I left 5 days after my 21st birthday. So I go to LA and I was like, I'm going to be a superstar. And everyone kind of told me, they were like, you know, that's not how it works. Like, everybody comes to LA because they want to be, you know, a star. And I was like, okay, like, I'm not concerned. And then, and then
that's so cute.
and I said to my agent, I was like, I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this. And she was like, relax, you just got here. And I was like, no, this is what we're going to do. I want to be a guest girl. I want to do like guest campaigns. I want to be Anna Nicole Smith.
Yeah.
And she was like, okay. So this was when Instagram had like wasn't really in its full kind of what Instagram is now. It wasn't the whole beast at this point. It was quite new. So I obviously knew who owned, well, I didn't know them, but I was aware of the name of who owns Guess and runs Guess and who discovered Anna Nicole Smith, and that was Paul Marciano. So I remember I was in the model apartment just off like Hollywood Boulevard, and it must have been, I'm obsessed with the Real Housewives. So I'd seen like Yolanda Hadid, Gigi Hadid's mum, posted something and tagged him saying he's just new to Instagram. So I was like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be like a crazy, like, notice me girl. So I followed him on Instagram and I went and liked everything. He had 500 followers at the time. So I followed him and I went through and liked every single Instagram post he had up, which wasn't many. And
So
I was like,
shit.
yeah. So I was like, I'm going to make it really obvious that I'm in LA.
Into him.
So he starts following me, and I'm posting photos like of the Hollywood sign and the Walk of Fame and whatever. And then I had also had a set of photos that I'd done, which were very Guess vibes, like the big hair, the eyeliner, black and white pictures. So I posted them after this very like strategic interaction, and he looked at my page because he saw my name like just in all of his notifications, and he messaged me and he was like, oh my goodness, like you are a Guess girl. I need to meet you. So I was like, here's my agent's email address. She'll handle it from here. So sure enough, like, so a week later,
He so would have too.
I get this like email from my agent, and she was like, they want to meet you at Guess. So like I fucking went down to the Guess headquarters, like shitting myself. I must have been just 21. And I was like, oh, so like nervous, whatever. Have this meeting with Paul, and he was just so lovely. I adore him. Like takes me through like the massive office, and there's 3 different buildings, and everywhere there's like these giant, like all the iconic Guest photos of like Claudia Schiffer, Naomi Campbell, Anna Nicole Smith. And he was showing me all the old books and the original like campaign photos, and he was like, oh my God, you remind me of like Anna, but like a bit of Drew Barrymore and a bit of Claudia Schiffer, blah, blah. And he was you're going to be the next Guest girl. And I was just like, what the fuck is happening? So yeah, like I left, and
that's an evil laugh.
They just started booking me for work. So it started, I'd go into the office and I'd shoot their e-com, which is like e-com refers to like when you go online shopping and someone's, you know, the photos that they use there. So I started doing that. Then I booked my first, we did like a test shoot, and the photos from the test ended up on the cover of a now defunct magazine called Men's Style in Australia, which was like similar to GQ. And it was like Simone's like the next, and it was put out with all my Guest stuff. So they were like Guest photos, but for this particular magazine. So I got my first cover with that. Then I had like my first Guest campaign. And then it just kind of went from there. I've had 8 guest campaigns altogether, and I've had 2 billboards. One was on La Cienega and the other one was on Sunset Boulevard. So that was like huge career milestones. Another, like a cool thing that kind of in that first year. So this all happened within the first year of like me moving to LA.
And this is with you hustling. You hustled this on your own.
Yeah. So, I had agents, but like I was the one who like
you hustled it.
Yeah. So this one day, I will never forget this day. Actually, it was so random. So I had done my first guest campaign, and I was sitting in a car rental place in LA because I was like, I need a fucking car. I'm just going to rent one. And I'm sitting in this car rental place, and I get a text from a random number, and it was like, Simone, do you like cars? And I was like, what the fuck? I was like, who's watching me? And I was like, yeah. I'm like about to drive out in like a Hyundai Elantra, and he was like, it's Paul. And I was like, who the fuck is Paul? And he was like, Paul Marciano. And I was like, oh. And he was like, do you want to do a car race through Europe? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, cool. Do you want to be on the guest team? Like, we're putting in a team for the Gumball 3000. Have you ever heard of that? Yeah. So he was like, we're sponsoring it. We're a major sponsor this year. Do you want to be on the team? I was like, yeah. So then that was like a whole other thing. So we did this like massive campaign for Gumball we had the guest branded cars. We had all custom racewear. It was me and 2 of the other girls. So that came out. We all went to Europe and we did this race from Stockholm to Vegas. So we went from like Stockholm to Copenhagen, Amsterdam, like all the like Swedish, I've just gone blank. What's the word? Like Scandinavia, like all through Scandinavia.
Yeah.
Then put the cars onto planes, flew to Reno, and it was just like the craziest week. And that was kind of like another like big thing.
Where's Reno, Italy? Yeah.
Reno in California.
The US. We'll go back into where we left, which was
long-winded story.
But it's fine.
No, it's good. No, because like, sorry, Simone, but like, I didn't realize you actually are like, big time and shit. Like, I had no idea who you were.
I'm not.
Well, you were.
You are to me.
Maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah, but you were, right? So that's why it's cool. So it's cool to hear your story.
But and also the other thing that's really cool, and I think it's a massive accomplishment, and when it happened, I was so proud of you, was Playboy.
What?
Yeah.
Tell Matthew and our peeps about Playboy.
So basically, off the back of all of this massive publicity that we had from doing Gumball, and so Gumball was a week of my life, but I was working 5 days a week. I was 21. I was flying all over America, all over Europe. Like, I would literally go to work on a Monday in California, like LA. I'd go to the airport, I'd fly somewhere, get there at midnight, shoot all day, go back to the airport, fly somewhere else. And I was basically only really home like 1 day a week. Like, I was on the move. I would go to Germany. I remember I went to like Sweden twice in the space of like 10 days for work. Like, I was fucking everywhere. And it was amazing, but I do remember like times that I was like, oh my God, I'm so tired. But I was just like, look, I'm just going to go with it because it's not going to be forever, because like modeling is obviously like a very small window. So you just got to
I'm just showing him photos of your guests and your Gumball.
I love that picture.
That's hot.
Should
I be saying that?
Anyways, so we finished Gumball, we come back, and I'm still like working fucking crazy. And then I got a phone call from my agent, and they were like, Playboy want to meet with you. And I was like, well, that's really interesting, because I don't want to do Playboy. And they were like, look, because they've approached you, that doesn't really happen unless you're like, a famous person who's doing like a thing as a celebrity. So they'd asked, and they go, just go into the meeting and just do the meeting, and they're going to fall in love with you, and like we're going to hold the cards here. Plot twist, you have to get completely naked at the meeting.
What?
Have I not told you this?
No. This is like pre-Me Too shit, right?
Yeah. So you have to get
Hey,
naked.
can you get our brush? Where's our brush?
I
Get
know,
my brush.
it's so hot here. I'm like,
Oh yeah.
no, it's like 32 degrees.
We have that effect.
I'm
We
wearing
have that effect
jeans.
on
I'm glad
ladies.
you say we.
Yeah. What?
So I go to the meeting, and I was like, I don't want to do Playboy. Like, because I was so young. I was 21. And I go to the meeting. They take me through the whole Playboy office. I meet everyone. I go to the wardrobe department, which like is surprisingly a massive room considering it's a magazine of naked chicks. I'm like, why do you need a wardrobe department? But they had like all the costumes and like it was pretty insane. And then it was this lovely older woman, and she had daughters my age, and she was like, look, like I've seen every single girl who's been in this magazine naked, and I've seen all the ones who didn't make it. And it was just like a thing. And it wasn't uncomfortable. It was just like totally, I was like, yeah, whatever. So she gave like, it was fine. It wasn't anything weird. And like everything was above board besides the fact that like.
You had no clothes on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, we went back and we were like, no, not interested. And they were like contacting me for like 6 months. Me directly, which they're not supposed to do, and then they were contacting my agents, and they were like, we want Simone to be a playmate, and they were trying to sell it as I was going to be the first girl since Anna Nicole to be like concurrently a guest girl and a Playboy playmate, which in hindsight, I would probably do it, but at the time I was just so young that I was just like, I don't foresee this being my life. And then finally, I remember it was like 4th of July weekend almost. And I went into my agency after just being like away for so long working. And I went in and they were like, you've booked Playboy. And I was like, what the fuck? I didn't want to do this. And they were like, I was like, we talked about this. I was like, we said that I wasn't going to do it. And then they were like, you're not doing it as a playmate, you're doing it as the cover. And I was like, oh, well, that's fine. And they were like, so the cover is just going to be like no nudity. And I was like, sick. Like all the glory, none of the guts.
Oh, fuck, I remember that.
Yeah, that was me. I look very different.
Oh, different?
You had a bob.
Very different.
That's such a good... Are they your bosoms?
They are,
But they're not.
Not anymore.
Oh, okay. Man, you had nice bosoms.
Thank you.
I remember, like, honestly, I remember... No, you're welcome, Simone. I remember that as soon as I saw that. Like, you didn't tell me this was Simone. She doesn't look anything like that.
Well, I shot that 5 or 6 days before
It's like
my
in one ear,
22nd birthday.
out the other.
So I obviously did it, and I was like, oh my God, like really nervous. I didn't tell my parents because I was like, I can't tell my mum and dad. I'll tell them before it comes out, but I can't tell them. And then the night before, I was like beside myself, and I rang my mum, and I was like, I'm shooting Playboy tomorrow. Please don't tell Dad. And she was like, what the fuck? And yeah, it was fine. Went to the shoot. Shoot was great. Like one like minor like hiccup where they tried to like the shoot. We had agreed that it was my face only, or if anything, like from the waist up. And the art director tried to pull a sneaky one on me as a 21-year-old, and I was like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
And but I just called him out on his shit. I was like, no. It was the only time I've ever used the line, "You can talk to my agent," and I walked off the set. And I was like, call my agent, and I walked off.
Just
and I went
imagine
outside, and it was when I used to smoke cigarettes. And I walked outside and I had a cigarette, and a few of the crew came out and they were like, all started smoking with me, and they were like, "Good for you." I was like, "No, dude." I was like, "You picked the wrong one, man." Like, I'm sure there would have been many girls who would have just been like, "Oh yeah, like it's fine." I was like, "Not today."
Yeah, that's
It
smart
wasn't
though.
anything bad, but it was just stuff that wasn't agreed on and that I would have
Yeah.
been paid more money.
Yeah.
Anyway,
And so was
that
it good dosh?
cool.
Good dosh?
Nah.
Shit dosh. So it's
Well,
I
more.
think it's known for having paid crappy money.
no,
I don't even know if it's.
to be fair, it was like I didn't think I'd be paid at all, because you generally, in terms of like magazines, if you get a cover, it's not paid because you're like, well,
You're getting something out of it.
you should be so lucky.
Yeah.
Like what we're giving you is priceless, so we don't
Yeah.
really need to pay you. So when I did get paid, like when I found out what I was getting paid, I was like, oh, that's sick. But in terms of being a playmate, because they were trying to convince me for a very long time, like we had multiple meetings about doing the playmate stuff, and the playmates only get paid like $30,000. And for me, and it was 12 months work. So you do the shoot, you're in the magazine as the centerfold, and then you have to do a year's worth of commitments, like doing press obligations,
Like one-off
online
30,000.
stuff.
Wow.
No, they paid like installment.
Oh, really?
Like you can, yeah. And then you have to do all the parties and stuff, which I'm like, fuck. In hindsight, sorry, I shouldn't be swearing, but I'm like, in hindsight, I wish, I'm like, God, if I could go back, I'd actually maybe do it. But it's
Interesting.
different because I was like 21 then, and I'm like a different person. And like, I see it
Why
on
would
both
you? Okay,
sides.
sorry, Simone. What? Okay, so why would you change your mind now and go back and do it?
Well, for me, like as like a woman, like just the older that I've gotten, I'm like so much more sure of myself. Whereas I'm glad I didn't do it then as a 21-year-old. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm like, I think I'm like, I just think like having more like confidence and being sure of yourself makes you like more, you know,
Sexy.
yeah. And I think about it, I'm like, I mean, I'm not a guy, but I'm like, yeah, I'm like a 21-year-old doing that in a magazine. I think like someone who's a bit
On it.
older and,
On
is
it.
probably
It's
a bit,
smart.
yeah. So
Yeah, she's
if I
super.
got asked like now, then I'd be like, probably, yeah. But yeah, at the time, it just wasn't the right move for me. And I'm glad I didn't do it because it was a lot of weighing up. Like, I used to work for like a lot of department store chains in America, and there's so many. And so I used to go to Milwaukee a lot, and like the brands, a brand called Kohl's. It's like It's not Kohl's like Kohl's in Australia. It's like Kmart or Big W or whatever. And I used to go and shoot with them a lot, and I'd heard a lot of stories of girls doing Playboy, and then they lost all of their clients like that, especially who were like Midwestern clients because they're very
Yeah.
straighty
Bible Belt.
180.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so it just, the money like that I was making from working, it did not like,
Yeah.
if I
Didn't
did
work.
Playboy and lost all those clients, it just wouldn't be worth it for me.
Here's
So-
a question, Simone, kind of springboarding off just your career in general. So you, it's fair to say, have been defined probably most of your life, certainly in your professional career, by others, mainly people who probably don't know you, but by your looks, by your beauty. Like there's no denying the fact that you're a good-looking woman. And what I love about Simone is that she's not, you're good looking, but you're not a fuckwit about it. You know?
Watch me, I can be. No, I'm kidding.
but to be defined by your looks and by something as superficial as that, it's carried you a long way. How do you stop yourself, or have you been able to avoid having your self-worth or value tied up in your looks? And what does that kind of look like as you hate to say it, age out of it? Because
She's not aging out of it.
I know that, but
she's-
when she does,
But
we
you're
all
trying
do.
to-
I mean, I'm
Well-
losing my looks as we speak.
Well, for me, like, I just think that the whole conversation about aging and, being like what's considered sexy, appropriate, whatever, has changed so much in the past 10 years that it actually like doesn't concern me. And even like the whole media spotlight on it has changed a lot. Whereas, like I just said, like when I was asked to do Playboy when I was 21, I was like, no, but I'm so much more confident now as I've gotten older. Like I'm a different person. It doesn't, I don't even know if I'm really answering the question, but I'm just like, it's not something that I worry about. I'm just like, I kind of always do my own thing anyway.
And in like your personal life, right? Because like we just sit around and banter and we're idiots, like we're kids, right? But you meet so many people who have grown up. We've talked about this before. So many, and it's most of the time it's girls who have grown up. They're beautiful. They've always been told they're beautiful. They're good looking. They know that they can. It opens doors for them, that sort of stuff. So they like don't need to try hard in terms of like, maybe they don't have to be as nice as somebody who's not as good looking, or they don't have to build a character as interesting or dynamic or varied. Like you've managed to do all of that, but like, have there been, pitfalls, or like, have you had to check yourself along the way? Because like beauty is currency.
Well, again, I'm not sure if this is really answering the question, but one thing that kind of springs to mind is sometimes I have noticed sometimes like within media, particularly in Australia, it just kind of depends on what day it is, who's writing the story. Sometimes I'm referred to as like model or TV person, and then other times when they're trying to like make me look a bit shit, they're like Playboy model. And I'm like, well, last week you were referring to me as something else. So like, which is it? Are you trying to degrade me because I did Playboy, or are you trying to like, the girls and like be a normal person about, you know what I mean? So in terms of that, like I've definitely noticed that. Like I had an incident, something that was going on in like my personal life, and it ended up in the paper. I hadn't done anything wrong. And it was almost like I was made to feel like they were kind of trying to put the blame on me for my situation because I had done Playboy. And I was like, no, that's not
so
it.
Interesting. Like shame.
Yeah, it was like
Shaming.
they were trying to shame me, being like, well, she did this, so like of course this happened to her.
That's so crazy in this day and age, right?
Again, I don't think I'm answering the question properly. But
No, you are. Well, it's a big question, and it's open-ended. And one of the things I remember really distinctly, and this is a slight pivot, is when you were doing you'd done Guess, which is like we'll put a photo up of it. I remember being in LA, and it was on Sunset. It was massive, and I remember going there with you, and like it was a huge deal. Like for me as your mate.
It is.
And I remember this so distinctly, and it stuck with me. It was that you were like at this pinnacle of your career that so many girls would aspire to, and men go, wow, you physical perfection in many people's eyes. And so you were nailing it. But I remember at the time, you were like never more down on yourself about your physicality, because you were like, every day I go to the agency and they're like, you're too big, you're too fat, you're too this, you're too that. And it was like when you were at the top, it's like your self-esteem was at the lowest I'd ever known you. And I was like, that is mind-bending.
Oh my God, I remember that actually, because I was in really good shape, and it was not, I mean, it was a while after Charlotte died. No, it wasn't. Because I moved like not long after she died.
So a few years.
And I'd gotten into like the best shape ever. Like I was jacked, and I was like, I would go to castings after I'd finished work. I didn't have my portfolio. I didn't have my comp card, which is like 2 things you need to take with you to a casting. And I'd walk in and I'd be like, hey, like I didn't bring my comp card. A comp card's like a business card. I'd be like, hey, I didn't bring my comp card. I also didn't bring my portfolio. So I'm just going to try some clothes on and I'm going to leave. And then I'd book it. So I guess this kind of goes back to your other question. Like I was doing really well, that I kind of got like a little bit too big for my boots. Whereas it's not that I stopped trying, but I was just like, well, I'm just going to book it anyway. And that was what was happening. But because I was traveling so much for work, I was just, like you're in airports, you're eating food on planes and stuff, and then you're working 24/7. I was on so many different time zones that I actually ended up looking like shit for a bit because I couldn't keep it up because before that, like when I was at like my peak fitness, I was running like 12 Ks a day and doing like an hour of Pilates, and I couldn't sustain my like what I was supposed to look like in terms of how much work that I was doing because I was just working constantly, that I had no time to physically look after myself in every sense of it, like physically, mentally, whatever.
Yeah, I just remember you just would be meeting in a restaurant and you came in, and when Simone, I'm not blowing smoke up your ass, but when Simone walks in a room, even in a place like LA, you're in Beverly Hills where it's full of like beautiful woman, like heads turn, like girls, guys, they look at you, Simone. Or maybe it was me. But you were at your lowest ebb. It was like you were broken. There was no self-confidence. You were like,
and that's when she was looking physically her best.
Well, I mean,
yes.
You looked to me phenomenal. You looked like to everyone else in person. You looked phenomenal, but your agents were telling you otherwise, or they were wanting more out of you, or whatever. And you were just like, not the big bold Simone. I knew.
I think it was because I did like it was like, you know what that saying is? It's like what you order versus what shows up. And because I was working so much, I couldn't maintain running 12 Ks a day, doing an hour of Pilates. And then I was flying all over the place, and it was just like physically impossible for me to do. So I was being like sold as this one thing. And I guess it was just like, as well, like I was always serious about it, but I was just so young that I look back now and I'm like, I probably could have been a bit more serious about it. You know what I mean? Because like I'm sure those girls who do like VS and stuff, like even though they're flying all around the world, they make time for all of that. And it just like wasn't that important to me at the time because I was just like, well, I'm just kind of enjoying it. I didn't want to put any like pressure on myself, but it kind of backfired and whatever.
So what do you mean it backfired? So
oh, well, because like if I was a bit more like, okay, I've finally like got my dream, I've got my dream career, all my clients, like I should have nurtured myself in that a bit more than just going, oh, well, I've got it and it's going to last forever, just purely based off personality.
Yeah. So because you're actually like what's interesting about you is your personality. Like you're a nice looking girl, but what's fun about you is how like just fun you are, right? So that's what's.
I was watching Sim last night. So Simone did.
No, you jump in.
I certainly will. Simone did a lot of TV shows, and because people obviously like to look at it, but because she had some fucking character.
Yeah.
But I remember last night I was looking at some of that short you sent me, some of Celebrity. What's it called? I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here.
Yeah.
And all the people were like, I just expected this ditzy idiot, this dumb blonde in the bush, blah blah blah. And they were like, she's hilarious, she's tough, she's funny, smart, articulate, and all these things. And that's exactly who you are. And I imagine there is a lot of preconception when people meet you that they think you're going to be a twat and a dumb twat too.
Yeah, but like to be fair, but to be fair, like a lot of them are. A lot of them take themselves super seriously. Think they're too. They just portray that I'm just too good. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I
feel like again within like this day and age and how everything kind of is now with Instagram, you just can't really get away with that anymore. Like if you're shit, people are going to find out sooner or later.
Yeah, and they can sniff out inauthenticity, right?
Exactly. That it's like you just have to be yourself. And like I've kind of always like I'm lucky that I've always been fairly like confident that I've just kind of always lived my life like that, and I've never really taken into consideration how other people may like, I don't know,
perceive you.
I'm just like, I'm like, I don't care.
Oh yeah, I know that attitude.
Kind of always works for me. But I just feel like if you aren't like authentic in this, in terms of, you know, Instagram and being a brand and being a brand for yourself, if it doesn't come to you naturally, if it's not authentic, then like people are gonna smell a rat.
Yeah,
You know what I
swipe on
mean?
by.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
in terms of your career progression, you've just in your life, you've just become a mother.
I have just had my baby. Well, not just, 8 months ago. And which has kind of opened like a whole new like pathway in terms of like my work, because, you know, I started modeling as like a 15, 16-year-old. Now I've got like a whole different kind of pond I can jump into because I've got a baby. So when Gia was 4 months old, I worked with this like a really amazing Australian brand called Nala, and they're an underwear company, and I've actually been a big fan of theirs since they started like 2 or 3 years ago. And Chloe, who owns the brand, with her husband, they just had a baby, and she was making bras, and she was like, I'm going to make like a maternity breastfeeding bra. So we did this huge campaign that I was like standing in the middle of the street in Melbourne, like all dolled up, and was feeding Gia. And the tagline of the campaign was like, sorry to offend you. And it was kind of to destigmatize breastfeeding in public. So that was cool. And that was like my first job back after
It's weird
my
that that's
baby.
even an issue for people. I mean, I get everyone's different, but like, why is it? Is it a real? Clearly, it's big enough thing for there to be a campaign.
It is, but again, like, it's different for me. Like, I'm so proud of that campaign, and I'm so proud that I was a part of it, because I know it is an issue for some people. But for me, like, I just didn't even think twice about it, because I was like, I know this is an issue for people, but I'm like totally comfortable with it. So like, I'll put my hand up and I'll like take one for the team. Having said that though, like, I've spent the better part of 15 years going to meetings completely naked. So
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? Like, I had to go to fucking Playboy and get naked in front of a stranger. Not that you're getting naked when you're breastfeeding, but, you know, like, I've been a lingerie model for 15 years.
Oh, you mean, so you're saying it could be an easier thing for you because of that?
Yeah, because
But it's other people who get weirded out more than anything, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like people get offended. I don't understand it.
No, and people...
It's like the most natural thing you can do. Feed your child.
I think the people who get offended by it are like, you're the one with the problem.
Do you think they're resisting strange urges? Do you think that's what it's about?
No, I don't know. I honestly, I don't know, but I'm just like, you're weird if you get weird about being breastfed.
Simone, tell me, like, are you pivoted into, you've done television work as well? What, presenting or?
No, I'm always like a dickhead who's getting tortured on TV for other people's enjoyment or something.
I didn't show Matthew that video, but there's that scene where you're eating, was it testicles?
Like
sheep testicles or eyeballs?
I ate like whole frogs. I ate a spider. I ate testicles. I ate eyeballs.
Is this on Celebrity Get Me Out of Here, whatever it is?
Yeah. I had the best time on that show, honestly. If I could go back, if they were like, we're doing an All Stars, I'd be like, sign me up.
Yeah. Matthew's done a few of those shows. Sort of shows,
yeah, sort of.
Oh, really?
But on the other end of the camera.
What do you mean?
Well,
you were the cameraman?
Presenting them, not.
Okay.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I've never watched them, so I just assumed you were.
Yeah.
I thought you were talent.
No.
No, I would like to.
Well, I am talent, mate. What are you talking about? Fucking am talent.
You are the talent.
Jesus. Thank you. Yeah, because you're the presenter, dickhead. You got to be you're still part of the talent.
Okay, whatever. I'm not part of your world.
I would like to get into presenting down the line, but at this point, I think people just like watching me get pepper sprayed.
There's a question I wanted to ask you, and if 15-year-old Simone could see you today, and you had the opportunity, what would you want her to understand about the life she's about to live?
15-year-old me, I would probably be stoked at the career that I've had. But if I could do anything differently when I was kind of at the very like height of my career, which I was really pretty young. It was from when I was like 21 to about like 24 or 25. I would probably take it a bit more seriously in terms of like longevity, that there would be certain things that I would, you know, like I would have looked after myself a little bit better, and I would have like been, because now I'm like all about routine and, you know, taking care of yourself and all that jazz.
And you're a massive fitness freak too now.
Yeah. And at the time, I mean, but I was 21. I just moved to LA. Like, and I was on the cover of Playboy and I was doing guest campaigns. Like, of course, I was having like the best time ever. But yeah, I would just probably tell my younger self, nothing lasts forever, and maybe take it a little bit more seriously. But I have, like, you know, I wouldn't necessarily change it. I've got
so no regrets.
No regrets. Got some great memes.
What about future Simone? What do you see for future Simone?
Future Simone, I just want to be working and have like a beautiful life for me and my darling daughter. And that will definitely be here in Australia, like whether we travel for work. And I'm like, the next 5 years, like while I can kind of go places and take her with me, like what a cool thing for her to do. And she comes to work with me already. So she's already like gets to be on sets, and like, I think that's cool. Just getting like a very whole, well-rounded like life experience, you know?
Oh, I can't wait to see where she goes and where you go. On that note, I think we'll wrap it up. Thank you so much for doing this. So good to see you. Wish it was in person.
Smith.
Oh yeah, she's our fave.
What?
Anna Nicole. She was our
Oh
fave.
my God.
We remember, what was that party that we were gonna? What was the dress-up party? It was a New Year's Eve party. There was a theme party, and
she's still alive.
No, she's dead.
No.
And I was gonna get prosthetics. I was gonna be J. Howard Marshall in a wheelchair, and you were gonna be Anna Nicole.
And we're going to make Madge be like cousin Vicky or whatever her name was.
Just smash a few of her teeth out.
Oh my God, we still need to do that. Someone have a dress-up party and invite us, please.
We will. Okay, Simi, love you.
Love you. Thank you.
I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for
I'm excited about this dress-up party.